Well, Daniel Ricciardo's comeback was nothing short of what we would have expected from him. And although he failed to score points, the pace he managed to get out of the AT04 in his first race was astonishing. And what we all knew would happen if Ricciardo did a solid race with AlphaTauri has turned into reality. Red Bull has spoken about the requirements they would have to see in Ricciardo in order to replace Perez with him. And after one race in the worst car on the grid, Ricciardo's connection with Red Bull has been made even stronger. And is there any real possibility we'll see the Honeybadger with the Austrian squad from 2024 onwards? Now, the Hungarian GP was one of the most well-anticipated tracks due to Ricciardo's comeback. After just 10 races on the sidelines, he was able to push the limits and bring the AT04 into Q2, which was kind of a hard accomplishment for a driver who had yet to drive the car before that race. Anyways, the practice sessions look good, and considering the fact that this is a track in which the cars suffer a lot from drag due to the high downforce requirements, Ricciardo's performance has been hailed by the F1 experts, as he started on P13 and finished in that same position. What's even better for Ricciardo is that he was able to out-qualify Tsunoda and then outperform him in the race, which wasn't an easy feature because after just one lap of racing, Ricciardo was among the last drivers, while Tsunoda managed to get P11 after starting last in the race. So, the Aussie has shown that he hasn't lost it and that he can still deliver great results in a subpar car. But that didn't take off the smile on Ricciardo's face. And while it was hard to believe that he would enjoy a role in AlphaTauri, he's doing that right now, as the P13 finish was something we'll remember for quite some time for a first race in the worst car on the grid. When talking about the outcome of the race, Ricciardo was full of praise for the Italian squad, as he went on to add, "I feel like I still have a bit of energy. I don't want to say worried, a word less than worried. This is always one of the most physical races, let alone having not done this for 8 months. I thought after 30 laps I would be singing for a breath of fresh air, but actually felt great. The race pace was good. It was unlucky for me at the start to drop to the back. When we're a team who need to have everything to go well to get points, I knew it was impossible to get back into the top 10, but I'm glad I continued the race and learned from the car. In the end, I'm happy with the race I did." This is something that Red Bull wanted to see from Ricciardo's first race. Him outperforming Tsunoda and showing that although the Japanese driver did a great job this season and put De Vries in a shadow, a driver who knows how to perform in F1 could be on the same level as Yuki. And not just that, Ricciardo has gone on to prove that he's one level ahead of Yuki by outperforming him in both qualifying and race pace. So this is the first part of the story for Ricciardo. But what comes after that? Obviously, it's going to be a rough patch for him to replicate the race pace and actually score points in the remainder of the 11 races on the calendar. But if there is one thing that Ricciardo has done in the past couple of years, that's perform under pressure. While the McLaren stint turned out to be a complete failure, now it's very evident that Ricciardo understands one principle in his life: you never know what you have until it's gone. And luckily for him and for the sport, his passion for driving an F1 car is far from gone. Now, before we move on, we want to tell you about today's video sponsor, Atlas VPN. Right now, during the summer campaign, you can get Atlas VPN for only $1.83 per month, plus 3 months extra for free with a 30-day money-back guarantee. We would hate for any of our viewers to have their data stolen, and Atlas VPN can help you with this by keeping your searches private and location data hidden. Atlas VPN has multiple cool benefits, like unblocking content that's not available in your country, save you some money when shopping, blocking malicious links when browsing, and much more. So make sure to check out their summer deal, where for less than $2 per month can protect all of your devices, which makes this the absolute best VPN deal in the market. Check out the link down below in the description before their summer campaign is over, and with that, let's get back to the video. Now, Ricciardo's recent performance couldn't have gone unnoticed by the engineers on the track, with Helmut Marko saying that they've praised his performance ever since the free practice session started on Friday. what's very important to note is that Ricciardo gave prolific feedback on the car's behaviour, which has the potential to help the engineers turn the car around in the latter half of the season and fight in the midfield, exactly what Ricciardo needs in order to have a proper fight for the Red Bull seat sooner rather than later. When talking about Ricciardo's Hungary performance and the chance of him replacing Perez earlier than 2025, Marko went on to say, "On Friday, the engineers were almost euphoric about the great feedback they received from Ricciardo. If Ricciardo wants to come back with us, he has to perform. The contract with Perez runs until 2024. Perez has to improve. We told him to just concentrate and not always look at Max. He just needs to be a little bit more relaxed." Coming into this weekend, Perez crashed 3 minutes into the free practice session on Friday, and it was safe to assume that he felt the ever-growing pressure of being gone from Red Bull and replaced by Ricciardo in the very near future. Considering how quickly De Vries was replaced, I doubt that Perez would have been given a lot more wiggle room for his performance had he not finished P3 in Hungary, but the reality stands as it is. Ricciardo is now the best candidate for that second seat at Red Bull. Now, obviously, he'll have to meet a very strong resilience in Perez's performance, because in Hungary, the Mexican driver has shown that he can do recovery races just as well as any other driver out there in a top performing car. But the problem is the consistency. This is something that Perez has struggled with throughout his entire 2023 season. And while finishing P3 from P9 is definitely enough for you to receive the Driver of the Day reward from the fans, the reality on the track is different. Anything below P2 for the RB19 is considered a loss. And starting P9 is nowhere near the plans of Red Bull's second driver, because even if the Austrian squad moves forward with the super team philosophy and brings a driver who can constantly challenge Verstappen for the wins, such as Leclerc or Norris, we mustn't forget that Ricciardo should not be left out of this mix. After all, he is the driver who we would be most delighted to see fight for race wins yet again, even if this seems like a mission impossible right now with Red Bull's current dominance with Max Verstappen. But regardless, Ricciardo's aim remains the same, and the U-turn mission has just been relieved by his great debut in AlphaTauri, something that got an answer from Christian Horner right after the race. Although the Brit said that for 2024, the replacement for Perez is undisputed and the Mexican will keep his seat, meaning that Red Bull won't pull the plug on Perez the way that Racing Point did back in 2020. The statement he just gave about Ricciardo's required qualities in order to become the second driver in Red Bull is pointing in another direction. When talking about this matter, Horner didn't keep words behind his tongue as he went on to elaborate. "It's always been the plan to have Perez in the car. He signed an agreement and it was a 2-year agreement, so that's our plan. Ricciardo needs to excel. The seat is Checo's and 2025 is a long way away. We want to field the best 2 drivers we can for 2025. Ricciardo's done a great job, and I think getting into the team that is 10th in the championship at the moment, a very foreign environment with 7 out of the seat, I thought that was a very solid, mature performance from him. The team will really benefit from his experience and knowledge, and you can see he's enjoying it, which is the most important thing. With a Daniel that's enjoying driving, you're going to get more from him." Unfortunately for AlphaTauri, they cannot count on having this version of Ricciardo for too long of a period. But from what we saw from McLaren, if the right parts come at the right time, then the narrative could change very quickly. And from a back marker, we can see the AT04 becoming a legitimate midfield candidate. If Perez's curse with the qualifying sessions continues and he'll have to be forced to do recovery races, then this would be more than great news for Ricciardo, as we've seen that the gap between Verstappen and the rest of the grid was already non-existent during qualifying on Saturday. With this in mind, Ricciardo is now likely rubbing his hands at home, full of joy that the debut went exactly as he had it in mind, finishing well below the point, but still close enough to be considered a good race. So is this performance enough for Red Bull to consider Daniel as a good replacement for Perez? Or will they seek continuous points and Q3 entrances? Let us know in the comments down below.